Hello everyone, my name is Abby and I'm the Young Adult Assistant at the Twin Lakes Library System and I use she, her pronouns. So for today, for Slice of Life, I wanted to talk to you all about some adult books or books that we would classify in the adult fiction section versus the YA section that are actually good for young adult readers. So these books all come from different lists from different years from the Alex Award, which is hosted by the American Library Association. So these are all books that they believe would appeal to a teen audience of 12 to 18. So I'll put a link to where the Alex Awards are in the description, and you can go and check out a bunch of other ones if you'd be interested in seeing more. I am planning on doing more videos about adult reads that I think would be good for young adult audiences. This is just the first one. There's some that we're still waiting to get in our collection that I think would be good to do as well. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. So I am just going to get right into it. So the first book that I have to talk to you about today is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I love this book very much. And this book follows the first son of the President of the United States. His name is Alex Claremont Diaz, and he is what they would classify as the closest thing to a prince this side of the Atlantic. And him and his sister June and his friend, who is the VP's granddaughter, please excuse the noise, they are kind of like the White House trio. Like, they're the first kids and the second kids. Everybody pays attention to everything they do. And they're kind of really good publicity for the president, who is actually a woman, President Ellen Claremont, and they kind of are representative of her. And what happens is Alex comes into contact with his nemesis, Prince Henry, at a royal wedding, and the fight and everything that ensues is sort of leaked to the tabloids, and so in order to do like damage control, Henry and Alex have to pretend to be friends, because the president is trying to get reelected, so she needs to look good, so they have to sort of come together and make it look better and like they're actually friends. But as they start hanging out, Alex and Henry sort of start to develop feelings for each other, and they're sort of trying to deal with that and everything else. And so Alex is sort of coming to terms with himself and everything else. So yeah, so that's just like a little summary. What I loved about this book, I love everything about this book. I think this book is perfect. But for real, the characters in this book are so good. The dialogue feels supernatural between them. And it feels like they really are people who are in their early 20s in college. As someone who is in her early 20s, who just graduated college, it felt really natural sort of dialogue that ensues in here. It's really funny. A lot of really funny scenarios happen in this book, and I'm not someone who really laughs out loud at books, but this book made me laugh. So that was really cool. The conflicts that happen in this book are, they feel realistic and they don't feel like they're being kind of forced. They feel like real problems that they would have to deal with, but they're also dealt with really realistically as well. So that was really nice to see. The romance in here is amazing. Alex is sort of coming to terms with the fact that I think he labels himself as bisexual, which is not something he had ever used before until he starts getting interested in Henry. So the romance is sort of educational for him and him learning kind of who he is as a person, which is really cool. It's enemies to lovers. It's fake date, like hanging out. I wouldn't say dating, but like hanging out, being friends. All the tropes are all wonderfully executed in this book. And I think it's a really good romance read for someone who doesn't particularly think they're a big fan of romance books. Or like a good starting point into romance. I myself didn't really think I was a big romance reader. I would read books that would have romances in it, but I wouldn't specifically pick up a book because it's romance based. But this one is classified as a romance, and I read it and I'm obsessed with it. And I think it's just fabulous, and I think it's a really good one help you get into romance. And then also it is like very representative of the LGBT community, and I really appreciated seeing that in here. And I love how popular this book has gotten. This book is really popular in the book world, which rightfully so. It's wonderful, but it was really nice to see that happen, especially with the LGBTQ romance. So I anxiously wait the film adaptation of this book. The next book that I have to talk about is a book I actually read really recently, and I love this one too. Dabney actually recommended this book to me, and they have great taste, so I knew it was going to be good, but I loved it so much. And that is House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. So, wow, what a book. I read this really recently, so I feel really into it right now. It's probably going to be on like my list of favorite books I read this year, so that's cool. But this book follows a man named Linus Baker, and he is 40 years old, and he is very quiet. He lives alone with his cat, who I believe is Calliope, and he likes his life. It's very solitary. It's very, he listens to music, and he spends time in his little house, and that's all he thinks he needs in life. But he is also a caseworker for the department in charge of magical youth. So his job, he basically oversees the well-being of children in these sanctioned government orphanages that take care of magical children who have like abilities and stuff. So think of like Charles Xavier for X-Men, but government sanctioned. But Linus is summoned one day to extremely upper management, which doesn't happen very often. He doesn't know why he's summoned, and they give him a highly classified assignment for him to travel to an island. I'm gonna try to say this. I never actually learned how to pronounce it, so... Oh, by the way, Red, White, and Royal Blue is available in our physical collection, and it's available on audiobook and hoopla. I'm sorry, I meant to mention that earlier. And House in the Cerulean Sea is in our physical collection. But anyways, Linus has to travel to an island called Marsyas, I think? I don't know if I'm right. Orphanage, where they have 6 dangerous children living there, so they were like high up on the spectrum of magical children. So there's a gnome, a sprite, I also don't know if I'm gonna pronounce this, a worm, I'm sorry, an unidentifiable green blob, and a were-Pomeranian, and the Antichrist. And so Linus has to sort of pick up his whole life and go stay there for a month, and he's very scared and nervous because this seems like a group of kids that he does not want to interact with. But also, when he gets there, he finds that that the children are not just kind of secret. Their caretaker, Arthur Parnassus, is also very secretive, but also very charming. And he wants to keep his children very safe. He's very protective of them, basically a father to them, and it's, he really loves them. And so as Linus is there, he and Arthur sort of grow closer, and Linus sort of finds things out as he stays there, and he sort of has to decide if this place can stay open or not. So, what I love about this book is the happiest book I've ever read. It's so happy. It's like, someone said on Goodreads, it's like an instant serotonin boost, and I definitely agree. I think everyone right now, especially, could use a really happy book, and I think that this is perfect. It's good escapism from the real world, which is a lot. Currently, it has been for a couple months now, so that's really good. So I really enjoyed that. It was super, super nice to have something as soft and as sweet as this. Yeah. And the next thing I really liked about this book is the relationships are really well done. It's very found family, which if that's a trope you like, this is perfect for that. I think it's like all of the kids and Arthur have such a wonderful relationship, and he really respects them and cares for them deeply, you can tell. And when Linus comes in, of course they're apprehensive at first, but as he gets to know, he becomes a part of it too, and it's really sweet, and I love it. This book also is able to address important topics without like ruining sort of the happy vibe that the author is sort of trying to go for. You can definitely tell he was trying to go for a charming, quaint little book, but he also is trying to address important themes in here. So he does that really well. So topics of prejudice are brought in because the children are not really super welcome at the island that they live in because people are afraid of them. So this book sort of addresses those themes while also remaining lighthearted for the most part. And I also think this is a really good book for people who are not into fantasy but sort of want to dip their toes into it because it's very fantastical and the children are all magical. I mean, the Antichrist is in this book. But it's not overwhelming, I don't feel. So I think that this is a good book for that. And yeah, so that's what I have to say about that. And then the last book that I'm going to be talking to you all about today is, let me find it on Hoopla, because we have it in our physical collection, but we also have it on Hoopla, and I don't have it. And I want to show you what it looks like. So, Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. So, like I said, we have this in our physical collection and an audiobook on Hoopla. So, this book, it follows children who have gone, think about Narnia. So, it follows children who have disappeared into the shadows or in the back of a wardrobe or under the bed or tumbles down rabbit holes, and they go to magical worlds. But then some children get sent back to the real world and they do not know how to cope. So they are sent to this home by the caretaker of Miss West, and she takes care of these children who have gone to these mystical worlds and they come back and they're not really sure how to adjust to the real world. And one of those children is Nancy, and she has just come back from the world that she was in. And her experiences have really changed her. She's not who she was before, so her parents don't feel really comfortable with her anymore. So they have her come in and stay at this house. But as Nancy arrives at the school, or at the home, not the school, the home, a string of tragedies and dark things happen. And it's up to Nancy and her new, people she lives with and classmates to sort of understand what's happening and figure out how to stop it. So, why I like this book a lot. This is a really short book. It's basically a novella, which is, I think, it's like 150, 160 pages. It's really short. So if you're not looking for like a long-term commitment to a book, this is a good book for you. It is actually a series too. I think there are 5 books now. I think so. So there's Every Heart a Doorway, Down Amongst the Sticks and Bones, Beneath the Sugar Skies, In an Absent Dream, It All Comes Tumbling Down. I think there's another one coming out. I can't remember. But what's nice about each of the books in the series is they sort of follow different characters. I do think it is a series. I do think you won't really get it if you don't read them in order, personally. I think that the first book really helps to clarify. But they follow different characters, and you get to see a bunch of different worlds, which is really interesting, and I really liked that. I have read the first four books in the series. I haven't read the 5th one yet, but that's cool. It's very whimsical. Like I said, you find out it is set in the real world in the first book at least, but all of these kids have gone to magical worlds, so we get to hear about all their experiences, which is really cool, and I really liked seeing that. And like I said earlier, if you think about Narnia, it is basically like Narnia. Like the kids, like Lucy and Peter and Edmund and Susan would all stay at this home if they came back from Narnia and were set in this world. But it is a little bit more mature in the storytelling, which makes it a good read for older audiences. But it still has the classic Narnia feel, which I think if you're a fan of Narnia, you would really enjoy this series. And I would say it also does a really good job at genre blending. So it's like fantasy, but it's also a murder mystery, and it's also sort of magical realism. It has a lot of different genres compiled into these different books. So that's really cool to see how that works. I think that it's eerie in like the best way. It's definitely a little bit on the creepier side, but like not so much that you'll be scared when you read it. So I definitely think that makes it a fun read. It would be fun to read in October, I think. I didn't read it in October, but maybe I'll reread it in October. But I think it would be fun to read that. And then the last thing I really like about this is that they're super immersive. You get really into the world, even though it's very short. You get really invested in the world and the characters and finding everything out. So that was really cool. I think Seanan McGuire did a really good job with that. So yeah, those are the 3 books that I wanted to talk about today, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.